Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. So we have a lot of news to dive into this evening, and just because that's the way of everything right now, there are too many things for me to just linger in an introduction, so let's get right to it. Whether you're, again, with us on the live stream side, over on YouTube, the podcast, the radio, or the TV crews, we're glad that you are here. There were reports today that, well, almost all of those migrants that illegally crossed the border into Spanish territory in North Africa, right across the Strait of Gibraltar, over from Spain, invaded Spanish territory and, started doing a lot of the things that you might have come to know and expect. And then today I started seeing a lot of news articles and claims, for example, from the Embassy of Spain, as well as several other articles saying, hey, 48.3 thousand of the 50,000 migrants have returned to Morocco after entering Ceuta. And this was supposed to be considered like a major victory. Almost all of them, only there are a few problems. Problem number one is that we believe the numbers now between Melilla and Ceuta could be closer to 80,000 to have crossed. And whereas yesterday we believed that 9 had died, now the number is between 50 and 57, most of whom drowned, one of whom it appears was eaten by an orca. I didn't think that killer whales got that violent, but that's certainly something. There have been people who are crushed and trampled while climbing and swimming, and there may be additional casualties on the Moroccan side of the border that we are unaware of at the time. Now, again, as of this moment, it's not over. It's not, and I'm not trying to bait you into something. We are getting updates as of this very, very moment to remind you over on the map side of things where everything lies. Here is for the radio crew. You'll have to just imagine. You have Spain, and then you have the two locations that are Spanish territory and have been Spanish territory for a very, very long time, of Melilla and Ceuta, that are now still being assaulted and invaded by migrants. Now, let's get into some of this stuff. There are some individuals doing some rather interesting things that doctors and scientists and engineers, I'm told, now there's a video of this as well. I'm not going to show you the video of the migrant defecating in individuals' yards, just that kind of stuff all over. But I want to get to this claim. The Embassy of Spain has said almost everyone who entered Ceuta yesterday has now returned to Morocco. It is not possible to travel from Ceuta or Melilla to mainland Spain without presenting identification at a police checkpoint. The integrity of the Schengen area is fully guaranteed. Only that's not the case. As we've reported yesterday, there are boat after boat after boat after boat that has been shown to be traveling from France over the English Channel to the United Kingdom. And that Strait of Gibraltar, that's a much shorter distance. The argument that is being made that, Spain has totally put up all of the coastal defenses, I have it on not just good authority, but in a direct statement from two maritime private military contracting agencies that Spain is not heavily guarding their coastline in the Mediterranean whatsoever. And migrants are, in fact, landing in Spain at this present time. Now, again, there are other reports. We'll get to Pedro Sanchez, the prime minister, here in a second. Let's get to some of the proof here. So there are currently cars on fire near the borders of both Ceuta and Melilla. By the way, the masses of individuals that you are seeing that are walking toward that border region there, those people are walking towards the border from Morocco. And then on the other side in Ceuta, we can actually still see individuals that are moving into the Spanish territory. It's not over. As of this time, we see rocks being hurled at police vehicles. I'm not showing the audio from this because it is rather inappropriate, more than we could censor. And you're saying, wait a minute, where are they getting all of these rocks and stones? Are they picking them up from the coastline? No. They are breaking headstones of graves and taking chunks of those graves to throw at legal citizens of Spain, and then the police and the army. So very, very civilized behavior, or as Jane Goodall would put it, very fascinating behavior. Now, as of right now, there are, again, we have to make this clear. There have not only been reportings of those who have been trampled and those who have drowned. There are street fights that we've been watching all day, people getting in stabbing fights in matches, assaults, reports of sexual assaults, reports of just straight up assault and battery, attempted murder. There is blood, which has been seen, both fresh and dried, spotting sidewalks and streets all over Ceuta. Now, as of about an hour ago, so it is currently by my watch 7:11 and 55 seconds on Friday, July the 31st of 2026. As of an hour ago, according to the Visegrad team, there are still people that are now climbing the fences and getting over into Spanish territory. Now, if there's an invasion that is over and has been stopped, usually you do not see people continuing to do the invading. And as a result, by the way, it should be very clear here that other nations in Europe have responded by reinforcing their borders. And essentially in the European Union, there is a policy that there is free travel between the borders. So for example, if you're on, one of the major roadways throughout Europe and you want to travel, from France into Germany, you just go right on through. You don't have to stop and do a lot of extra stuff. However, because of this migrant crisis, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, of course, over in that border that they share with Spain, they have argued vehemently, not the border they share with Spain. The border they share with France, that again is a primary route from Spain through France to Italy. They have urged that border to be shut. They've shut that border, even though, again, the policy in Europe is through all members of the European Union to keep all free travel open. Austria as well. Chancellor Christian Stocker described the Ceuta events as a, quote, clear warning signal, and said Austria stood ready to temporarily close all border crossings and reintroduce all Schengen border controls if migratory pressure of any kind reached its territory. Many of its neighbors, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia, have also called for additional border security measures. The French, of all people, Interior Minister Laurent Nunez, and then, of course, some statements linked vaguely to President Emmanuel Macron, ordered immediate strengthened controls at the land border with Spain, including dispatching a rapid intervention border force and mobilizing all of the French deputies to be keeping an eye on things. And a couple of aircraft, a couple of surveillance drones have also been sent up. So we're keeping an eye on the situation. It is not at all over. Now, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, he showed up in Ceuta, and then once he got back to Spain, he was heckled immediately. And I mean... So for those of you who are not perhaps up on your high school Spanish, hijo de puta, son of a, So things are going very, very well. Pedro Sanchez did, however, address the country. Now, you may recall that yesterday his statement was that he was just fully committed to providing an immediate response. We're just mobilizing resources and building solutions with responsibility and cooperation. Essentially, he's given everyone the corporate speak in just really accented Spanish. Today, however, he said what has happened is an attack on Spain's territorial integrity. It's the first time that he's ever actually said this in any way, shape, or form. There were concerns from inside his cabinet that he was just going to be lynched at that point. He said what has happened is an attack on Spain's territorial integrity. It deserves our most resounding and energetic condemnation. All of Spain stands with the people of Ceuta. Well, says the government of Spain stands with the autonomous city. Now, this is an interesting line. The reason, again, that he's emphasizing the autonomy of Ceuta, this is Spanish territory. And just because it is quote unquote self-governing Spanish territory, federal law from Spain still applies in both Ceuta and Melilla. All Spanish holdings are under Spanish law, and they pay taxes to Spain. So, but he's saying autonomous as though this is somehow some extra nicety that he's laying on. Maybe the socialists have a point that really these territories should be ceded to Morocco, etc. Radio crew, we have to send you to the commercial break. We have a lot to cover tonight, and the news is not going to slow down. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, again, I talked about some of the socialist response so far. The international kind of the horseshoe politics, so the socialists and then also like the really far right wackos have a different theory as to why all of this has happened. See, there have been, as you know, over the last couple of months, individuals from the Israeli government that have received lectures from Spain, and Spain has sided with essentially anyone who was antagonistic to the West. So they've sided with Palestine and Iran. They've sided with Venezuela and Maduro. They've sided with Cuba. Spain has, again, under Pedro, they have done quite a bit of socialist international kind of catcalling just against the West. Well, Israel and several members of its government got up during this particular crisis and essentially took things that Spain has said on the floor of the UN and on social media, criticizing Israel, and just flipped the language around and said, oh, well, it appears that you really don't like all of these people invading your territory. Remember to treat them right because they must have legal grievances. That kind of very dry humor response. Again, Spain has called for all of this two-state solution stuff and that Israel needs to cede all of this territory, et cetera, ad nauseum over to the Palestinian Authority or Hamas. And so there were messages like this today, very tongue-in-cheek, that, well, 2 states for 2 nations living side by side, a 2-state solution, one might say, in peace and prosperity. A lot of very snide remarks. And those who have an IQ of about 3 have decided that this means that Israel and the Jews are secretly, auspiciously, and openly encouraging Morocco, who had like a state holiday the day before. They're like, clearly this is the Jews trying to encourage invasion. Because, yes, there's nothing that the Jews love more than watching Islamic expansion. I don't know about that one, Chief. Or maybe just like in the same way that, for example, when J.B. Pritzker gets out in front of the state of Illinois and says crime and safety are a problem, and then the rest of the country mocks him because Chicago is a hellhole. That's the same vein. Some people need some reading comprehension classes. The rest of the world, though, however, has started lambasting this kind of behavior from North African Islamic culture, again, trying to invade. The president of the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, he spoke today about the terrorism escalation in societies in both the Middle East and in Africa. And this is right before, again, this major action that we are about to see in the Middle East, perhaps this weekend. Here's the president of the UAE. He says, terrorism has entered our society in the name of Islam. Terrorism has come to us in our name, so there is no need for us to throw it in another direction, by which he means that we don't have to ignore it because, well, they're Muslims, so we're on the same side after all. He says, no, we need to fight this because it's coming for us too. If it comes to us in our name, we should be the very first to confront and resist him. And so, again, the UAE and then also some of the other Gulf states have also made it very clear that, this kind of action and behavior of the third worldism that has emanated out of Islamic culture, it turns out isn't actually providing a whole lot. Now, so a couple people said, well, this video is very old. That is true. The statement, however, was reiterated today from his office. So he basically took the transcript from his old statement that he made and then reiterated it word for word on his press account from the UAE. So why we shared the video. That's why I also said statement instead of video, but that making it very, very clear on that end here. So that brings us over to the major news out of the Middle East. And this brings us to the Gulf allies and a lot of very, very serious things that we can probably expect over the weekend. Multiple reports now coming out about this. We're trying to keep a very close eye on these things as they develop. at least the United States and Israel, but also alongside, now we're getting reports, Saudi Arabia and the Gulf partners. This would be Bahrain, this would be Jordan, this would be the Kuwaitis, and sometimes why, in this case, being the Iraqi prime minister, preparing a series of major strikes against Iranian infrastructure this weekend. We're going to get into that. I'm going to talk a little bit about these developing details as the radio crew joins us from their commercial break. All right, the radio crew is rejoining us. So the United States appears right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, according to CBS News, the United States, quote, and Israel are planning what would be one of the harshest bombing campaigns to date against energy infrastructure targets in Iran, multiple sources told CBS News, with strikes possible throughout the weekend. There was some discussion about trying to conclude by the time financial markets open Monday because of a concern about how the bombings would affect the U.S. and global economy, but an endpoint wasn't locked in. Now, where's the actual coordination here? So, according to one series of articles, the Israelis have been notified and are coordinating with the United States. And according to other sources, the Saudis have been notified and are coordinating with the United States. Now, the Saudis and a coalition of several other Arabic states have also signed on to a coalition force to patrol the Red Sea and prevent the Houthis from attacking trade in the region. Because the Arab League is much more dependent on the Red Sea than the United States is. Much more dependent. Additionally, again, citing the statement from the UAE president reaffirming his prior video public statement, is also in redress to the Red Sea Coalition. So what do we see here? The United States actually setting in sight both Iranian power plants in the southern and central Iranian grids, so to speak. They don't have exactly the same kind of cut and dried grids as the United States does. But all about these particular facets here, I do want to make it rather clear that if the United States, Israel, the Saudi Arabians, if these particular crews go forward with carrying out strikes on Iranian power plants, you're going to see a couple of things right downstream. So, number one, if there is no power, then there is no way for the Iranians to effectively communicate with the IRGC along the Strait of Hormuz. And we've talked about this before. It's worth saying again. Iran is about the size of the American Midwest. Like from Wisconsin swooping all the way over to Ohio, that's about the size of Iran. Tehran is not right next to the Strait of Hormuz. And if the IRGC, which is already split into two pseudo-factions along the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz over to the Gulf of Oman, if the IRGC is cut off from all communication with the Iranians themselves, that's going to be a bit of a problem. Now, there have been some Gulf allies talking in coordination with the United States and the Israelis about setting up some kind of land checkpoints or perhaps some coastal checkpoints up near the Caspian and the Black Seas to try to prevent Russia and China from bringing resources down from the north into Iran as well. Now, those haven't really metastasized into notable reports so far that at least we can cite with confidence. But the president of the United States had a couple of statements that he issued. One was on the invasion happening in Spanish territory in Spain. I know a lot of people said, well, actually, it's North Africa. It's not Spain. It's Spain. It's not as though this is like an associative territory. This would, in fact, be an invasion of Spanish territory that happens to be on another continent. The Strait of Gibraltar is not exactly massive for those of you who took middle school geography. But alas, here was the president's statement on the invasion in Spain, and then also on the situation regarding Iran and a ceasefire. The cabinet meeting was very interesting at Camp Jordan, but here's the president of the United States on Spain.
You know, I saw Spain yesterday, and I watched the catastrophe that took place. It looks like an invasion of a country by hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected. Except worse, much bigger, much easier to get into, despite the fact that we have built thousands of miles of wall, which I said we were going to do, but we didn't have that, forget it. But we have the safest border in the world. If we're not in office, our country will be invaded at levels that made Spain look small time.
Now, we played a clip yesterday on the show, provided to us over by Western Lensman on X, of the Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security for the Biden administration, and his statements before Congress with superseding clips superimposed clips of all of these invasions of the United States under the Biden administration. We've already addressed that, so I want to move on very quickly. There was a comment. I keep an eye on comments during the show, but I don't normally answer things right up front. I will this time, though. Regarding my claim that Iran would struggle from the Islamic regime's standpoint to communicate with the IRGC several hundred miles south, I said, well, have you ever heard of satellite communications and radio? There are no communication satellites for Iran that are currently operational. None. Zip, zilch, zero. There is no infrastructure in place that we know of at all in which the Chinese or the Russians are allowing the Iranians access to their satellite feeds. There is no ground to satellite communication service in Iran. It's not there. Not that doesn't require a heck of a lot of power. Now, also on radio, it takes a little more than a Baofeng 5R radio to communicate a long, long, long distance. And maybe you could run up the old jungle antenna and hook a car battery up to your little radio transceiver and really try throwing a radio signal that far. But the United States and its forward operations is very, very, very good at jamming short and mid-range radio communication. We're very, very good at it. Like, excellent. Additionally, if you're going to say, what about a larger AM or FM radio communication method? That takes a lot of this stuff called power. It's one of the reasons why you never, ever, ever touch an AM radio tower. It will fry you immediately. So if the power's cut off, there's not a lot of communication going on. Cell towers also take a good amount of power. Now, there's one comment from a user named Dolly. Don't they have cans with strings? That they might. That they might, miss. Just incredible. Incredible. Now, the Iranians have satellite access for verifying their missile strike damage. No, they don't, because the Russians have to provide them the literal JPEGs of satellite footage. No, they don't. They have to pre-program in actual lateral geologic data. They're not able to just throw in or geographic data. They're not able to just coordinate communication points. No, they have to actually program in the specific direction of their drones and ballistic missiles programs. Don't build scarecrows and ghosts when your enemy, Iranian satellites. Don't play those kinds of games. Don't do that to yourself. So that brings us over to some of the updates on the Iranian side of things, because they issued from their state media a response forward out from Tasnim, an Iranian state media source, saying from a senior security official, we have prepared a comprehensive plan to respond to any potential American recklessness. Now, I've heard this one before. You've heard this one before. Like, we're going to attack every base at once, all of the bases. They're all going to blow up. We're going to sink the whole Navy. We're going to down the whole Air Force. So this time they said, and a senior security official told the Tasnim news agency that we consider the claims made by American media outlets regarding potential U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran's infrastructure to be a form of recklessness. Oh, so exciting. So exciting. We have prepared a comprehensive plan to respond, which includes critical infrastructure of the Israeli regime and U.S. energy infrastructure in the region, and we are ready to implement it. Okay. Sure. I'm interested in seeing that. Radio crew, we will see y'all on the other side of this commercial break. We're going to continue on the live stream. The President of the United States from the cabinet meeting at Camp David today, talking about the strategy going forward. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, the president also talked today. I wasn't necessarily going to talk about this, but I just can't help it. The President of the United States today was flanked at the Camp David meeting. On his left was Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and on his right is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Now, I don't want to read too much into the tea leaves here, but we're on the commercial break on this side, so hey, what are you going to do? The president normally sits next to either Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent Secretary of State Marco Rubio and or Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. And then on the other side is always Vice President J.D. Vance. Today, that was not the case. Vance was on the other side of the table. And the president also had this, well, he had this to say about ceasefire and a future plan regarding Iran.
The United States over the past 10 days, how do you reviving the ceasefire and getting diplomacy back on?
Well, I think we just want to win. We just want to win. We're doing very well. We're trying to be nice as you can be in a situation like that. But they're being decimated. They have no navy. They have no air force. They have no anti-aircraft. Doesn't mean they don't have any capability. They have some, but very little. We just want to win.
So, yeah. I mean, how many times do you have to do the, oh, okay, here we're going to do the deal? No, we're not going to do the deal. We're going to do the deal. That's over. It's either win it and finish it or walk away and admit defeat. This is not simply a sunken cost fallacy kind of situation. There's a little bit more to it. Now, today also, the president was asked about a possible cyber attack in Minnesota. So as a clear statement here, this morning at just after 9 a.m., the federal government issued a warning that followed a Thursday warning, so 2 warnings now in the last week, about potential cyber threats to water systems. Now, this was after 30 water plants in Minnesota were hit with cyber attacks that multiple U.S. officials told ABC News may have been linked to Iran, but there was really nothing on the back end of that had substance. And the reason that I say that is anyone can say, well, yeah, sure, maybe this was related to Iran, but they're not quite sure. The president said he didn't think it was Iran. He said that he thought it was more likely that it was the Tim Walz administration that was just really incompetent in Minnesota. I have asked around today from friends of mine, both in the State Department and the DOJ, and I have not heard anything back on anything else on this. That's just transparency. Just telling you, hey, I asked, I didn't get a response. So I'm not going to speculate too much. There is what the federal government issued warnings for, and there is what the president of the United States said. Now, if Iran, this is where I will do the one little bit of speculation here. If the president of the United States is about to strike Iranian infrastructure, and Iran just leveled a cyber attack at U.S. infrastructure, that would be a very tit-for-tat situation in which the president could say, well, they struck our water, so we have gone with the decision to erase a power plant or two. You know, except you can just toss them over the hill, like that kind of a thing. That seems kind of like a Trump decision to talk about it. That's the only speculation I'm going to do there, because not only is there way more news to dive into, but we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. Last little update here on the U.S. and Iranian situation. The Saudi Arabians have now moved towards getting an additional couple of squadrons of aircraft ready. So I can say with complete confidence here, based on our sources near Riyadh, that Saudi Arabia is spooling up a couple of squadrons. I don't know if that's going to be for sorties against the Houthis. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. I don't know if the Saudi Arabians are spooling up a little bit of air operations, whether that's going to be in concert with the United States, whether that's having something in the air during the operations for reconnaissance means, or whether that's for carrying out strikes on the Houthis. But a couple of squadrons are getting down to business over near Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. In the meantime, on the foreign policy front, the United States is able to confirm that Russia is providing satellite imagery, because Iran doesn't have access to satellite infrastructure, to Iran. China, which was accused earlier this week of planning to deliver over 400 portable rocket systems, rocket launchers, perhaps, the old Panzerfaust, but a little more modern, to the Iranians. The United States has kind of put forward a diplomatic-sized response by adding 30 different Chinese companies to the Muslim Uyghur population labor list. So the United States has a series of countries through the State Department that it refuses to allow any kind of trading with, because those countries are suspected of using slave labor through, in far western China, the Uyghur Muslim population. And the United States, although President Trump said, well, I'm not quite clear if Xi has decided to throw rockets or not over to the Iranians, He told me it wasn't, but you know how these things go. Another couple of days later, and the United States then added a bunch of major Chinese corporations to this Uyghur slave labor list. That's an economic shot in the knee of China. Some of the companies that are listed, I'm not even going to begin to try to pronounce some of these names, are major exporters. And there are several other countries that if the United States adds these to the list, Italy, several countries in South America, including Argentina. I know that Germany is also one of these countries that if the United States adds to the slave labor list, many other countries, Australia is one of them, won't buy from China. So if China is not able to sell some of these goods to Australia or the United States, you can only get so many Labubus in the warehouse not going out to excited children in the United States before you start to have nowhere else to put them. And the factory that's making the Labubus is suffering kind of a Labubu. Sorry. So that brings us over to the other Chinese news, in which the Chinese Communist Party has now openly flown Democratic Socialists of America members, who again are now a major part of the Democratic Party, over to China. That's just, I want to make sure I say that one more time. American socialists, actual in the United States, Democratic Socialists of America members have been flown to China to take pledges of allegiance to a foreign power. Here's the original Fox story on this today.
I went to Beijing, kind of hung out with everybody there and checked out the communism there. And this is one of those members, and this is what they wrote. I can't wait for you to listen to this. This is D. Knight, a DSA member from New York City, reported back, Beijing buzzed with excitement after a separate trip in 2024. Knight wrote in a blog, the provincial foreign affairs department staff called us VIPs and treated us royally. That's what he was excited about bringing back home. This is the same government that's accused of crimes against humanity against the Uyghur population. And yet he's excited that he was being treated like a VIP.
Yeah, and the difference is the people who live there are not treated like VIPs.
Right.
And you use the right word in talking about this communism. Some of these DSA members are calling it Chinese socialism, which that doesn't even make sense based on the way that government operates.
But even if it was Chinese socialism, it is still a foreign government that is not only openly and proudly using slave labor, not only has carried out some of the greatest atrocities on the face of this earth, but the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, is considered a geopolitical adversary of the United States, meaning this, the State Department can in fact prosecute you for working openly with the Chinese Communist Party. You're not allowed to do that. You're not. It's one of the things that gave the State Department and the Department of Justice the legal standing to investigate Neville Roy Singham, the husband of the founder of Code Pink, the Chinese United States expatriate, moved over to China, does all of his operations from there, that essentially calls for the United States to be undermined from within, all of that political revolution. And this is the same DSA that now also, according to CNN's own polls, 1 in 3 Democrats now considers themselves to be Democratic Socialists. So when I said earlier this month, that the party was splitting down the middle, there were some Democrats that came forward and said, well, it's just a small wing. There are just a few really exuberant people, as Barack Obama said, as Nancy Pelosi said. And it turns out, no, this has become a substantial wing of the party for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is because a lot of the left is youth driven. Now, that may sound like a marketing dream because everyone always tries to go for the 18 to 24 age demographic. They're very low propensity voters. And by the way, in a lot of these special elections that a lot of Democrats are holding up and getting really, really excited over, those are also very low turnout elections. However, here's the fun part. As the Democrats have moved further and further and further from those special elections into the socialist camp, as the midterms approach, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Harry Enton, again, over at CNN, it's approaching, and it's got a lot of people retching. Check it out.
What do we see? You know, we've seen those democratic socialists really thrive in big urban areas, right? New York, Pennsylvania, you go out to Colorado. Well, it's no longer just in the urban areas anymore, at least according to the casualty prediction markets. We got a Wisconsin Democratic primary going on. We got Hong, who is running, who is now, in my opinion, the clear favorite to win that Democratic nomination. She's a Democratic socialist. Her chances up like a rocket. On June 30th, it was just 41%. Now a 96% chance to be the Democratic nominee in Wisconsin, a Democratic socialist according to the casualty prediction markets. So this is not just happening now in New York, Philadelphia, Denver. It looks to me like it's going to be happening in a place like Wisconsin, which of course is a very purple state.
But it's a very specific kind of purple. Very specific kind of purple. People who make kind of broad national statements in politics, there's a lot of, I hate this word, so I hated it so much when I was doing policy writing or whenever I was doing academic writing for master's programs. I despise using nuance as kind of like the word to just throw around as it's too difficult to explain. Oh, there's nuance. This is a kind of thing in which I can say there's nuance to purple. As weird as that might sound, the purple of Arizona, very different from the purple of Wisconsin. For example, the red of Indiana is very different than the red of Texas, which is very different from the red of Florida. The blue of Michigan is very different from the blue of New York City. And the kind of purple that Michigan is built out of includes some youths and some of the Islamists of Dearborn, and also just a huge heap of the traditional Democrat auto union workers in Detroit, Clinton Township, for example, over at the Allison plant for Ford. And then when you go over to Wisconsin, there's a lot of the young socialist youths. There's a few not really a whole lot of Islamists, but a few. But there is a huge youth wing. And then there is a large strip of kind of the Rust Belt manufacturing from Kenosha up through Milwaukee and then again up in Green Bay. And kind of the longshoreman style of thing, the maritime industry. Those are a traditional kind of Democrat that are just not a huge fan of the young rise in socialism. Now, this brings us to a couple of other pieces of fun here. But Harry Enton also, since we're talking about polling, made it clear that the move towards socialism is a national problem for Democrats, because even though more Democrats are identifying as socialists, independents despise it.
So you think that Democrats, or you might think that Democrats in Congress could see some kind of boost in the polls on this subject.
And why should they be seeing a boost in the polls? I've talked about this with Daniel a lot. I've talked about y'all with this a lot. The president of the United States, normally, typically, whenever we are in the middle of the kind of midterm cycle, traditionally you've seen as the president's approval rises, his party's approval also rises. And then his opponents fall. And when the president does a lot of really stupid stuff that the American people don't like, then the opposition party gains popularity and approval, and then the president's party goes down. This is a new trend in politics that instead of that traditional model I just described, poorly as it is, I apologize, now we're seeing Trump's approval rating goes up and it goes down independent of Republicans in Congress. Democrats' approval rating continues to sink because although they're running against Trump, they're not really running against Republicans. They're just running and they're mad. And they're promising health care and they're yelling about Israel and they're yelling about the Supreme Court and the Senate and stuff, but they're letting a lot of other stuff fall to the cracks and they're losing a lot of their people. Here, we'll let him continue.
You might think that, but you'd be wrong. With us this morning, CNN Chief Data Analyst.
Whatever, man.
I'm tongue-tied because actually these numbers surprise me. I was looking at them and I am surprised that they are like this. So,
by the way, that's a very, very clever way to cover up being tongue-tied. Go, oh, I'm tongue-tied because of the surprise. Raw broadcasting talent, that's good stuff. Ought to take a little tip there. But alas, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Radio crew, we got to send you over to the commercial break. We're going to continue on the Tony Kinnett Cast. A lot of situations we're monitoring, ton of news. We'll see the audio crew on the other side of it. All right, we'll let him continue here.
Who do the voters say they trust on Iran?
Johnny B is not the only one who's surprised. You would be looking at all the news coverage. You'd be looking at all the polling of President Trump. And you would think that Democrats would be able to take advantage and be dominating Republicans when it comes to who is trusted to handle the Iran war. That, simply put, is not the case at all. I mean, these numbers are quite surprising. Trust Dems or Republicans on Iran. According to CNBC earlier this month, you'd think, okay, that's one poll. The Republicans trusted by 2 points. But then CBS News comes out yesterday, and what do you see? You see the exact same thing. Trump and the Republicans take the cake. They are trusted by 2 points on Iran. Now, one poll is one thing, but you put the two of them together, and you can see that the American people, simply put, are not buying what Democrats are selling on Iran. They still trust Republicans more, even if you look at President Trump's approval ratings on the subject, and they're negative too, but yet Republicans and Trump still more trusted than Democrats are in Iran.
Has there been any?
Moving forward, that brings us not only just on the Iranian side of things, the approval rating of Democrats in Congress.
These numbers right here, and you go to yourself, no wonder what's going on at this point, that Democrats, simply put, cannot take the ball and run with it and actually in the polls be trusted more than Iran, because the Democrats in Congress, simply put, are not well liked. In fact, these are the three lowest on record in terms of percentage points for the approval for Democrats in Congress. So,
and with men in the United States, Democrats are like down 71, 72 points. It's bizarre. Now, again, it's not necessarily bizarre once you consider the kind of candidates that they have ready to go. So I know that I mentioned the relationship between Democrats and the rest of the party. We'll get to that with Troy Jackson. But we're going to talk about Wisconsin, because in Wisconsin, Francesca Hong, again, we're coming up on some big primary dates here. Francesca Hong, their socialist supreme, you have Democrat candidates for governor that are dropping out because she's surging in popularity among the youths. She has a lot of social media momentum, but Democrats are not learning the lesson that Republicans desperately needed to learn in 18 and in 20 and in 22. Lesson number one, there's only one Donald Trump. Lesson number two, if you try to just be Donald Trump on social media and, I'm getting a lot of following and these are all real and not bots, and man, I'm running for this election in Kentucky and there's a lot of excitement across the country on Twitter for my campaign. I've said this for a while and I'll say it again. You are not running for a congressional seat or a gubernatorial election that everyone around the country and the world can vote on. What happens on Twitter is not real life, or X. What happens on Facebook is not real life. It is not. And the Republicans largely learned this. We've seen in many ways a lot of Republicans who are the establishment technocrats, the neocons as some call them, who were tossed out because they were out of touch with voters and are in the middle of being thrown out right now. Rod Bray of Indiana, the state senator who opposed Trump on redistricting, he's announced now he's leaving the position leader of pro tem, like the head of the Indiana State Senate. And he did it to himself. Those are being tossed out, but also the crazies are also being kicked out or are leaving themselves. The Tucker Carlson crew announcing that he's voluntarily leaving because he doesn't like the Republican Party. I just don't like that it's it's just controlled by these Jews. Like, the horror. So the Republican Party is kind of normalizing. Now, it's not all roses at all. In fact, right now, radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. Right now, there's a lot of Republican infighting. But that is a mere sideshow. While, again, as we approach these primaries, Democrats are taking the best opportunity they've had in a midterm in years, decades. They've never had this much opportunity because Republicans have been fighting amongst themselves for years, and it's finally now coming to the last throes of Republicans fighting amongst themselves and governing in a way that, as strange as this may sound, that the Obama administration viewed Congress and the alignment. Republicans are kind of getting in line and working together on big national issues and compromising with each other to do so. That was very common in the Democrat congressional era under Obama. And the Trump administration this time around is running its administrative state on a totally different set of values and policies, but wielding the administrative pen much like the Obama administration wielded it. And Democrats are panicking because they have no idea at all what to do, at all. They're fighting with each other in the meantime, and their candidates they're putting up, I mean, they're not just clowns, they're an entire circus. So Francesca Hong, who has again said that the Packers need to be nationalized, like the federal government needs to own the Green Bay Packers. Just, oh, it hurts. All of these tweets are coming out of things that she has said in the past. She's been asked consistently how she feels about various issues, and she's just one of the most radical, insane nutcases ever. Tweets like, "Kiddo, why are you eating dad's chicken bones?" Me, because I am not white. For real though, it's alarming how differently we consume chicken drummies. And my 2-year-old looked at his chorizo stuffed chicken Ballantine and asked me for white hot sauce because apparently that's what he calls ranch dressing now. Oh, so funny. There's actual bad stuff here. That's just to start off with the stupid. I ate 2 bites of my kid's cheeseburger at a Culver's, like the Wisconsin restaurant, by the way, in Black River Falls, and told him that they ran out of ice cream. Why? Mostly, I just wanted to leave because I was on the verge of an anxiety attack. Too many old white people who didn't think we spoke English. Oh, too many old white people at a Culver's in Wisconsin? No. The horror, the shock, the terror. And then again, also her statements. How is 7 bullets in the back not excessive force? Police exist to uphold white supremacy. Defund and then abolish the police. Reform can't be an option. Insane stuff. Cancel Thanksgiving because it's colonialism and it's a super spreader. And she's a nutcase. So when she was asked about these statements, because again, she's running to be the governor of a purple state in a place in which there is not a unified Democrat response to Republicans. This is her response.
Why do you believe that the police must still exist?
Still exist?
So the reporter asked a great question. So instead of asking her, why do you think the police should be abolished? He flips it around. Why do you think the police should still exist? Great reporting technique. It's assume, kind of force your opponent to make the argument for common sense when you know they have none. The word salad here could give Kamala Harris a run for her money.
Because the reality of this moment and in the types of public safety systems that we have, I want us to be sensible and realistic, but we know now that the billions invested in the criminal legal system is not working. We are spending on incarcerating an individual more than tuition for UW-Madison.
By the way, she accidentally let something slip that just makes me grin into the night. I just think it's the funniest thing in the world. She says the reason that the police don't work is that she says we throw more and more and more money at it, and we're not seeing them fix all of the problems. And then she brings up tuition for UW-Madison. How many Democrats have you heard say that all we have to do to fix all of these federal programs, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's insert SNAP benefits, whether it's the housing situation, if we just throw money at it, it'll magically get better. But then they'll turn around and they'll tell you that, well, we've thrown all this money at the police, and I'm looking outside and it doesn't look like Paw Patrol to me. Incredible, beautiful, stellar.
You know, this is about making sure that local law enforcement, is working with community, that we are taking resources from the state and investing in things like public education, victim services, out of school programs for our kids to go.
Why would you need to invest in victim services? Wouldn't it be cool to stop the crime before it happens? It's like we've put forward a lot of money for counselors for people who have, again, suffered being slaughtered or beaten, maimed, raped, stolen from, victims of arson, of etc. ad nauseum. Why not just stop the crime?
Have a great, be able to be themselves. These are things that data and facts have shown that prevent crime. Again,
no. I've looked for this data before because I've debated opponents who have said these kind of things. It doesn't exist there. Friendly hugs and love and friendship programs are not like the things that bring down crime. That's just not a thing. Like if you show kids enough Sesame Street, then they'll just become wonderful kids. And they're like, oh, I can't murder. Big Bird said that's bad.
If you want to be tough on crime, you better be tough on causes.
Do you still long-term want to abolish police, but ultimately?
I believe that we have to be serious about public safety, and I'm going to be a governor that is more serious than anyone else in making sure that
word salad and dancing around it and just dancing around all the time. You see the same thing, by the way, with Troy Jackson. Now, Troy Jackson up in Maine, the replacement for Graham Plattner, the alleged rapist and kidnapper and domestic abuser who cheated on his wife that he married in 2023 with a ton of different women that he dated at once, and maybe talked with minors as well, and ran a fake oyster farm and the PTSD and all this other stuff. That guy, who they've replaced with Troy Jackson. You thought that the weirdo in the debate, Ashley or whatever, the dude who said he bleeds from his butt once a month, that's what makes him a woman, and that he writes his own songs. You thought that was the weirdo of the campaign? Troy Jackson, I told you the scandals were coming. So as we broke yesterday on the show, we talked about right after the news had come out. He married, well, he's not married. He's his longtime partner is his second cousin, who he's got a couple of kids with. So he's being roasted for that. We'll get back to that in a second, though. I told you that there's a lot of dodging going on because none of these people have any idea what they're doing. I mean, here's Troy Jackson dodging on the most basic stuff, the split in the party, the Chuck Schumer stuff.
You met with Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer this morning. First, you've said in the past you wouldn't support him for leader. Has anything changed about that after meeting with him?
No, I mean, it was a good meeting. Again, we talked about issues that we both believed in, health care for all.
There it is again. It's the only promise. Oh, we're going to talk a little bit later this evening. Actually, after the broadcast is ended, we're going to kick the live stream crew over to the other YouTube channel and show you, again, from someone who was promised infinite healthcare by the other socialist countries of the world. That didn't work out so well. It sounds really good as a promise, though. It's all they have in this election.
Fighting for working class people. It was interesting to me how...
Fighting for working class people, that doesn't mean anything. We just say working class. We dangle it in front of you like car keys, and you goo goo and gaga like a toddler in awe. Radio crew, sorry, we've reached the end of our broadcast time here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. We will catch you on the other side of this weekend. Take care. Join us on the live stream, youtube.com/dailysignal. All right, now that they're out of the way, we can shuffle over to letting Troy Jackson continue.
Much he, was appreciative of labor. I'm in 5 labor unions, so, I mean, nothing's changed, but I definitely appreciated his willingness to help me win this race.
Exciting. Dodges the question, doesn't want to insult him, doesn't want to say he's for him, dancing around the split. I mentioned, again, his having 2 kids with his second cousin. What's going on in Maine? We haven't had a chance to talk about this. Not only the Graham Plattner situation, but also PETA, like the angry vegan organization, had a naked woman paint herself red, and a rather curvy naked woman, I might say, painted herself red, and then took like a large fake plate and laid on it to pretend to be a lobster. It's like, this is what you're actually eating. And then she was catcalled so much. What is going on with Maine? Like, what on earth, man? What a time. Anyway, Storm Paglia over at townhall.com with Matt Foldy. He went up to Graham Plattner, not Graham Plattner, Troy Jackson, Ilhan Troymar, and said, hey, you have any dating advice for going out with your cousin?
Road tripping with my friend to Acadia National Park. He's going with his girlfriend, and he asked me to ask you, what is a good date night spot in Maine? In that part of the state, is there any? I don't know if that's exactly where you're from, but anywhere do we need to check out in Acadia region, Bar Harbor? I know it's no Hamilton.
Yeah, I don't know. There's Mike. The seniors have a really great lobster pound. I think in Trenton, outside of, great restaurants, stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, all I did was go to the beach and,
Is there a favorite hike?
Not really for me there. I mean, my favorite hike is up in the Aroostook County, so if you want to go there.
What's it called?
The Bullies Preserve.
I mean, just excellent. It finishes up like so we're a nice place to take your cousin. And Troy starts stammering. I see a lot of you you really want the Nass lobster video. What's wrong with you people? All right, I'll have my team go ahead and load it. And you people, I don't know what to say. But I do know what the other Democrats who are recognizing how this like weird socialist cousin or brother marrying strategy is like really not doing too well. Again, Michigan's primary is also up here on Tuesday. And Abdul El Sayed is in a lot of trouble because his wife owns a bunch of rental properties, foreign rental properties. He's a little rich boy who doesn't actually do any work. Socialist man, even though he says he's not socialist. He just preaches all of the very same things. And all right, fine. You guys win. I will show you the stinking lobster video from PETA. Fine. There she is. There you go. There's is the boiled lobster that PETA says stops festival goers cold. And people are making fun of her. They're not like, wow, you're so brave. They're like catcalling her because all she is wearing is a pair of underwear and I guess like some paper plates, like very large pasties for her boobs. Just PETA, ladies and gentlemen, just there you go. All right, there you go. I'm not going to question. I'm not going to take crap from this comment section over the figure of this lady. We're not getting into that. We're not doing that. So, all right. Moving forward, I want to talk a little bit briefly about the response to this before we get to the Republican infighting. So James Carville, he's just going out in a blaze of glory. Again, you may remember the Bill Clinton campaign guy who just wants to be mad and yell.
Let's take in Michigan. Now, Al-Said is highly competent, but he's way left. I see challenges from the, quote, progressive left, unquote. And these people are too hard-headed to know that they're not popular. People don't like them. And but if you get a skewed turnout in a primary, you might end up losing a race that you should have never lost in the first place.
Now, why is that? After all, I mean, wouldn't Democrats be ready to get out there and unify? He says if you have a skewed turnout in the primary, which means if all of the youths come out and the rest of the Democrats are like not feeling it, and you end up getting the socialist, there aren't enough socialists to just pull out 1/3 of Democrats is not enough. It's not enough. And again, as I've cited before, all of the various articles all over the media landscape that have made it perfectly clear that the traditional groups of voters in the Democrat Party for the Obama coalition are leaving in droves. Well, you've got a lot of black voters leaving. So what do? You get Pete Buttigieg out there, the guy who polls the lowest of all of the Democrat hopefuls for 2028. You get Pete Buttigieg out there, and he just starts yelling and ranting about racial gerrymandering. Excellent.
Because the Supreme Court said you can basically systematically dismantle black voting power.
Dismantle black voting power.
As long as you say that the reason you're dismantling black voting power is for partisan advantage.
Well, it's not for partisan advantage. It's because you had drawn the Nickelodeon logo in order to try to fit in all of the individuals of a certain color group who then you suggested would elect a person because they were black. That's pretty racist. Instead, if you divide up the districts based on, again, the partisan gerrymandering, that's a tale as old as time in the United States.
Then they're out there doing it.
It's an intellectual outrage. It's linguistic gymnastics.
And it's so transparent.
Yeah.
So transparent. Oh, yes, indeed. Best of luck with this. Now, don't worry. It's not only Pete Buttigieg. It's Kamala Harris. Now, she's decided that she's not just going to go in and like criticize the racial stuff to try to win kind of the groups that are leaving the Democratic Party. Instead, she's got a different plan for joy to come in the morning. Instead, Kamala Harris is going to pull some of the socialist lines. So again, all the socialists saying from Francesca Hong all the way over to Hassan Piker to Zohar Mamdani, that's like abolish the Senate, pack the Supreme Court, abolish the way the presidency is elected as we know it, all of this other stuff, abolishing police, abolishing ICE, abolishing the military. Kamala Harris has decided she's going to do her own version of it. And, well, I hope this works for her.
We need to revisit the Electoral College. We need to revisit the point of expanding the court to 13 justices like we have 13 district courts.
It's amazing that the moderate position in the Democrats is now getting rid of the Electoral College and expanding the Supreme Court. There was a time when packing the Supreme Court was considered the aggressive option. Now, the aggressive option in the party is getting rid of the country. Getting rid of the Senate, the Constitution, the presidency, the Supreme Court, weighting everything totally differently, amnesty for all, getting rid of all of the institutions kind of a thing. And then the moderate position, moderate with air quotes, for the Democrat Party is just packing the Supreme Court.
We need to revisit, if they so want, statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C.
Ah, yes, the island that can't get itself together. What a phenomenal state.
If we regain control of the Senate.
And that if is getting really rough.
I served on this committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, when I was in the Senate.
And you were mocked for knowing and doing nothing.
Only the second black woman elected to the United States Senate after Carol Moseley Brown.
Ah, yes, that's the important thing. I have a vagina and my skin tone is dark. Yes. Oh, yes, just wonderful. You're best of luck with that. Can she answer what happened about Joe Biden yet? Has she actually figured out a way to talk about it? No, she can't. Here's her answer on that.
There is the quality that is everything that flows from the concept of integrity, which includes speaking the truth and being honest with the people.
Yes, speaking the truth and being honest with the people. Also being very verdad and also not telling lies. This list of things that is not all the same thing I'm saying in different ways, as though the thesaurus is haunting my dreams.
And, and sometimes that will result in being unpopular. But in my experience in elected office, it is better to weather those moments when you are unpopular than it is to lose the respect and trust of the people.
Yes, because we've never known Kamala Harris to look at us and say, no, Joe's fine, everything's fine, and then take a bunch of money and run, leaving the DNC in debt. I do. I really love it. I think it's fun. Now, on the Republican side of the aisle, there's a different kind of infighting that's going on, and it has drastically different results. And I'm not joking. There is very, 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 very drastically different results here. So this I'm very, very much a fan of. So as more Republicans are put on the record, and the Daily Signal has definitely been a part of this, we've seen other organizations and outlets in various places that have been advocating for these particular policies of keeping the Senate in session, appointing and confirming Todd Blanche. We, of course, have seen the same kind of action and attitude from Republicans over the Save America Act. We've seen over the NDAA. We've seen over stopping insider trading and so on and so forth. As my boss, Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal, said today, Republicans need to just get this thing done and get this thing through, because otherwise, what good are you?
Now, there is a group of senators who want to cancel the August recess and stay. I don't necessarily know if they're going to get their way. I personally hope they do. I hope the Senate does stay in town. But there's a lot of things to get across the finish line, Kelly. I mean, you have the Save America Act, the third reconciliation bill. You have other pieces of legislation that are awaiting action. And now, all of a sudden, we're talking about the anti-weaponization fund and Todd Blanche. Not exactly the message that you might want if you're a Republican heading into an election that's probably going to be decided on bread and butter issues.
And much of the tension you just outlined is Republican on Republican.
Yes, it is. In fact, it is Republican on Republican. Now, here's the fun part. This isn't a straight down the middle split where we're seeing, like with the DSA, a lot of, we have to stop this thing before it starts kind of behavior. No, not at all. In fact, what you are seeing is a Senate that is in complete and utter disarray because more Republicans are choosing sides. This is very unusual in the Senate. It's very unusual. Here's how it normally goes. You have a majority leader or a minority leader, and in the Senate, it's very lockstep. This is what we are going to do, whether it was McConnell or whether it's Thune, or well, on the Democrat side, whether it's Schumer, whether it was Harry Reid, and senators would not really speak out against others. Now we're seeing something totally different. And what we're finding is that some of the Republicans that I were kind of concerned were going to choose the more establishmentarian side of, we're not canceling the recess, and we're not touching the filibuster, and we're not going to pass the Save America Act, and I'm here to lay here and sleep, are actually siding with the conservatives of the party. A great example of this would be Todd Young. I thought that there was a chance, I think Todd Young's going to actually be on with us next week. I thought that Senator Todd Young of Indiana was going to kind of either be quiet and kind of not side on the August recess team. He is picked the other side. Senator Rogers as well from Kansas. I have that right? Senator, I know that sounds silly. Roger Marshall, that's it. Goodness gracious, I was concerned for a second. So Senator Marshall's also joined the team of getting rid of the August recess. Thune is now in a really rough place. He's in a rough place because all he has is Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, sometimes, who lost his primary. He has John Cornyn of Texas, who just lost his primary. He has Mitch McConnell, who is leaving. He has Tom Tillis, who is leaving. He has Lisa Murkowski, who is wildly unpopular among Republicans. And then he has Susan Collins, who is likely going to squeak on by, but that's like one person. One person. Well, now he has another. And I've said this for ages, and some people said I don't know what I was talking about. Well, here we go. Today, it just so happens that Senator John Curtis of Utah, I told you have Mike Lee of Utah, who's great. And then you have that other senator from Utah who no one knows and is often just like a grumpy man who's like, leave me alone and don't talk to me ever. I'm here to do nothing. Well, John Curtis has come out and also said that he is not going to do anything at all in any way to get rid of the filibuster. So this adds another Republican senator. That brings the total up to 8. Again, we have a majority of 53 in the Senate. So 8 subtracted from 53 is 45. 45 is not a majority to break the filibuster. He's not going to do it. And then John Cornyn was touting it around and saying, yes, I like the Save America Act, but I don't think that we should get rid of the filibuster kind of stuff. It's just bizarre. It's so bizarre to take this approach, getting roasted. And again, as part of this establishmentarian crew that does not want to go to August recess, now Senate Majority Leader John Thune is so nervous that Republican senators are not going to play by the rules and be quiet, but are going to bring up motions that Democrats might play into to encourage chaos. No one knows how Fetterman's going to vote on canceling an August recess. Like, who knows what's going to happen? So the Senate was supposed to be in session today, according to the 119th Congress second session schedule. And they weren't. Thune called for the Senate to be adjourned until Monday. And this is the thing that our producer Josiah has kept a very close eye on. We've talked about it a lot. The reason that they are adjourning until Monday is because they're not actually going to go to a true recess. If you go to a true recess, then Trump gets to appoint and confirm through recess appointments Todd Blanche and a bunch of judges. And the Democrats don't even get to blue slip or voice a no on those judges. Trump just gets to add en masse tons of people that he wants, which at this point he should. It is 2026. What have we been doing? Well, we have to hold a hearing and a hearing for the hearing and a committee for the hearing for the hearing. No. By the way, this is why I believe that there's no way in here, heaven or hell, that Rand Paul is going to actually get Fauci held in contempt of Congress. If the Senate can't even get out of recess and break the filibuster, and they're stuck in this endless adjournment pro forma, not really a recess, because again, you don't want to let Trump appoint anything. Well, then you're not going to hold Rand in contempt, or you're not going to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress. No, you're not. Get out of here. You're telling me Tom Tillis, Mitch McConnell, if he's there, and Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins and Cornyn and Cassidy, again, the same crew who spoke out in favor of getting Merrick Garland as the attorney general. Oh, all of a sudden they're going to come forward and vote to hold Fauci in contempt. No, they're not. You know that. Don't play games with me. There's no accountability here. Again, this is why I, here, Tony, I have called for the repealing of the 17th Amendment of the Constitution. Direct election of senators is retarded. It is a waste of time, and it essentially means that your state's primary elects your senators instead of your state legislature. If your state legislature elected senators, first of all, you would care, your state would care a whole lot more. I've heard the argument, well, I don't like my state legislature. They're very rhino. If your state legislature elected senators, all of a sudden you would find your state legislature looking a whole lot different because people would care about local elections for once. It would be incredible. Additionally, there would be no more 6-year terms. State legislatures, whether unicameral in Nebraska or bicameral elsewhere, commonwealths and states, would be able to recall senators. So the Kentucky State Senate would just be able to recall McConnell and put someone else there. Like, dude, you're old and you're very poor of health. It would be incredible. I mean, and that's where the party is heading, by the way. Not the amendment, but like treating Senate elections this way. Thune is terrified of it. Terrified of it. Now, currently on the board for no recess until the Save America Act is passed, Senator Mike Lee, Rick Scott, Jim Banks, Ashley Moody, Darlene Graham, Tommy Tuberville, Bill Hagerty, Katie Britt, Todd Young, Marshall Blackburn, Eric Schmidt, Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania, Roger Marshall, Jim Risch, and Ted Cruz. So people saying, oh, I don't know where Ted Cruz is going to fall, and that Cruz has joined the list. Now, Senator Kevin Cramer has said no. And Kevin Cramer is the Republican senator of North Dakota. And if you want to imagine what he looks like, he is yet another. All of the senators who are no votes look the exact effing same. Excuse me. I apologize. They look the exact same. Like, they are all an old white guy with like the kind of crop swooped hair like yours truly, but it's white and it's shorter. And then they all don't go with these glasses. They're all like that thinner kind. They all look the exact same. All of them. Every single stinking one of them. Even Lisa Murkowski might be an old white dude with white hair and thin glasses at this point. I'm not quite sure. It's just, and by the way, some of you are, Senator Crapo has also joined. So that's awesome. There's another one that's just joined. Some of you have mentioned other senators and said, I'm surprised this senator isn't on there. I do not think it is particularly legal for me to encourage you to take specific kinds of action. But as I have said to every audience out there, if you believe that it is a good idea to call your senator's office, for a lot of senators, although you may say that does nothing, for many of these senators who have remained quiet, I happen to have it on very good authority that they really do pay attention when they suddenly get swarmed with phone calls. That is just an interesting fact that one might take to heart. I don't know if that's you, but that is certainly interesting. Also, again, Cornyn is still very, very, very upset. He knows he's the one that's holding up Todd Blanche's confirmation as the Attorney General. It's just so silly. And at this point, if John Curtis wants to tie himself to these kinds of things, he won't be senator in Utah for very long. He just won't. Now, another thing that there are some Republican senators who are being way too quiet on right now is the passing of additional federal legislation banning all biological males from competing in female sports. This is something that Congress has the ability to do. The Supreme Court has confirmed it on a state level. And again, if they broke the filibuster, which Democrats have already planned to do anyway, this could be passed. It could be a codified into law thing. And by the way, that's also part of the Save America Act. I know. What a concept. Because again, right now, female athletes are still being forced to compete against biological males, sometimes without their consent or without their knowledge at all. In Washington, again, we've made this example before, high school sophomore Callie Keeler was sexually assaulted on the wrestling mat during a tournament. Only afterward did she learn her opponent was a boy who identifies as a girl. Our sponsors, the Alliance Defending Freedom, are an excellent organization. I'm very picky about our sponsors, and we are thrilled that they sponsor us because the ADF is helping Callie sue Washington State over a policy that not only allows males to compete in girls' high school sports, but doesn't even require schools to disclose that information to female athletes or their parents. Don't let schools put gender ideology over the safety of girls' sports in their schools. Your support today can help fight for Callie and other athletes just like her, and for a limited time. Your first gift to the ADF will be doubled by a special matching grant while funds last. Text Tony, Tony, to 83848 or go to joinadf.com/Tony to have your gift doubled. Now, there are some other bits and pieces on the fraud side. Oh, I am getting added on my team, my producer team. Senator John Husted of Ohio has just now shared he is also saying no recess in August. We have to stay and pass the Save America Act. See, a little bit of a trend that appears to be happening in the meantime. So that's some pretty good stuff. I'm here for it. I like it. All right, before I shift you guys over, there is a phenomenal interview that we have over on the Tony Kinnett Cast channel. Again, you can subscribe to the Tony Kinnett Cast here over on YouTube. It's our new channel that we've just launched. And it's one of the things that we're kind of giving the opportunity to share some exclusive and pretty great content coming up. So that's where this will be. I think that we have it set up so it should automatically send you here at right before 8:30 over to that new video that we're launching again with PragerU this evening on, what the universal healthcare promises actually hold in store. Before we do that, though, I wanted to take just a brief moment because you guys have sent in some phenomenal questions that really do need answered before the week is out. So it's time for just a little bit of mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
So as a reminder, mail time works like this. We try to keep track of the comments over in the comment section on YouTube, other live stream things. However, in our Discord, there's a link to that in the description as well. There's this fun little mail time channel just for us to actually see all of the fantastic comments that you send us over on that side of things. Again, there's a lot of questions that I want to get to because who knows, by the end of this weekend, things could be completely and totally different. Like me being forced to go live if we start a major campaign on bombing infrastructure. A country with its power out behaves a lot more differently than a country with its power on. Just ask Cuba. So, one question from Nuke Wester. He said, on Fauci, I still want to know, did he accept or reject the pardon from the President of the United States? He says, the Supreme Court is clear on that. This would be, when I refer to the legal questions that I'm trying to get answers on, I'm not even sure who would do the prosecuting in that case. To plead the Fifth Amendment before the Senate, it appears he didn't have the right to do so. So the Senate, because by pleading the Fifth, he's not accepting the pardon. But does the Department of Justice make that kind of a decision? This is one of the reasons why the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, needs to be officially confirmed as the Attorney General. In my opinion, the man under promises and over delivers. The DOJ might be asking about these kinds of things already. And as painful as it is for me to say this, because I have tried to get some answers on this week, I am never going to tell you something if I very expressly don't know the answer here. I don't know yet. I think it's a legal gray area for me because I don't know the answer. It's why I'm asking questions. That's also why I said no matter what the case is, do I think the Senate's going to do anything? Nope. Not at all. I don't think they're going to do anything because, again, we have, while they are still with us, a few senators who are just not really worth a wooden nickel. From Holstein, good friend of the show, says, Tony, do you believe that Trump actually trusts the words and intentions of the Iranians and puts stock in any agreement they make, or is he more savvy than that? My answer for that question is I don't think he trusts them at all anymore. It's also why I believe, this is personal, I'm not trying to read too much into it. I'm not telling you this is my analysis as in like, this is what I think and where you should take. This is a hunch, a personal hunch. All right? I'm going to ring in the bells from Notre Dame kind of a hunch, okay? I think that's why J.D. Vance has been placed on the other side of the table today. I think Vance came in with all of his crew and the people that he listens to who have told him, you can just cut a deal. They're reasonable. They ain't a little diplomacy. And I think that it produced exactly... I don't believe the narrative that, well, it was just to show the world that the Iranians can't be trusted. Find me one person that was like, oh yeah, you can trust them. And then after that, they're like, oh, you can't trust them. And I'll believe that. I don't think there's anyone out there that's been convinced. I just don't. I believe that the President of the United States, his long-term strategy right now is the overwhelming force thing, which is what it should have been at the beginning. It should have. This has always been my take. The reason that we lost in Vietnam is because we allowed the American media, and by the way, including an indictment here of Walter Cronkite, who did a lot of pearl clutching over they're being mean to the natives. Just like, piss off with that. No, either the U.S. goes in with overwhelming force, like Cuba, anybody, and wins the war. Goes in with overwhelming force, the Gulf War under George H.W. Bush, or with Grenada, Reagan, anybody? And actually goes in and does the thing. Overwhelming force and ends it. Or don't bother. Don't go in and nation build in green zones and red zones and yellow zones and fun zones. Finish it. And then when some journo comes up to you and says, but what about collateral damage? That the Iranians have killed 50,000 of their own people. They're still executing more. They've launched missiles at desalination facilities in order to starve or to die of thirst. I don't know, the term's not coming to my mind, to starve someone of water, of an entire country regarding Kuwait. And then not to mention the terror networks that they are desperately trying to prop up. No. That's the long-term strategy is what I think it appears to be. But again, whether or not that's there, we'll find out. So this one is from, I think this is an Australian joke. This is from Nar, like how the Australians say no. Tony, I'm curious, can they say they'll remove the filibuster on the condition that they will put it back in after the vote? No. Because as Mike Lee pointed out today, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, the filibuster is a procedural rule, and it's not even being used correctly. So the filibuster means this. If there are less than 60 votes on any given bill, then you are allowed to endlessly debate it until the other party gets tired. That's it. That's the rule. So if the filibuster was being used, the Republicans would say, hey, we have 53 votes on this thing. We're going to put it to the floor. And then as soon as you get tired of debating it, that's it. Now, Thune has tried to say they can endlessly suggest amendments. That's just not true. I've heard that. I've heard that a lot. That's not true. He is not correct. And the parliamentarian has confirmed that. They don't just get to say, like, it's an amendment, it's like an unlimited, like, cheat code thing, like where Mario jumps on the Koopa shell next to the block and it's like endless one-ups. That's not how this works. And once the filibuster is broken, I will say this. It's just like the nuclear option that was established for appointing and confirming members of the administration or judges. Once you go nuclear, it's over. It's just going to be nuclear. And that's one of the reasons why I will forever quote Mitch McConnell against Harry Reid.
Say to my friends on the other side of the aisle, you'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
Now, that age of politics is over because the Democrats are truly going to do it anyway. So either do it or don't. So, that side of things, I'll say it. I'll take one question and then we'll send you guys over to that, again, really, really, really incredible interview here in just a second. How well do I think the so-called Hamas peace deal is going to hold up? It's not. It's not. Again, Hamas is currently being starved by the fact that the Iranian regime is crumbling and they're not able to offer support. They have begged the Houthis to like go all out, and the Houthis have now basically kind of gone all out. There's no like supplies going in. China and Russia supply Iran when they can. They don't supply the Houthis. They don't supply Hamas, and they don't supply Hezbollah. So that's why they're getting weaker. That's why Lebanon is now working with the Israelis. Because if there's no support coming to Hezbollah, then what are they going to do? But it's not Hogwarts. They can't just magic themselves some more resources. No. Yeah, that's my particular take on that. We're about out of time for the mail time, so I am going to send y'all over to this excellent interview again with the PragerU crew. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. If some big stuff happens over the weekend, we'll go live and cut through it. We'll see you guys Monday. Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.